I say, what ho, chaps and chappets, game chap and birdie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, players, and as you may know, you can now get out there and vote for your favourite character in Super Smash Bros. On Wii U and 3DS. But we are presenting right here our top 10 most wanted fighters in Super Smash Bros., you know.
We most certainly are. So as we said there, you can go out now, vote on the ballot, and just choose what you want. I think they've got it open till October.
Right.
And after that, well, you may well see the character you've chosen in Smash Bros. Itself.
That's right. Nintendo are actually going to take fan input here into consideration and maybe even include the characters you vote for. So, without further ado, at number 10 we have here Shantae from WayForward's Games. Now, Shantae is of course a genie from such games as Shantae and the Pirate's Curse.
She most certainly is. Now, she uses, because we're going to be talking about perhaps what they could use in Smash Bros. For weapons and attacks, she uses hair-whipping attacks and belly dancing to defeat or outwit her foes.
I see. Now, some people might say, well, what about her outfit? But of course, her outfit would not be a first in Super Smash Bros., since we already have Zero Suit Samus, who now possesses a rather revealing pair of costumes.
She most certainly does, and I think she would bring a fresh moveset to the game, certainly.
Certainly, Shantae is quite a fresh and interesting character. Her games are very fun and loved by many people, and of course I do think that with those hair-whipping attacks of hers and various other tricks from her series, she'd be quite an interesting inclusion in Super Smash Bros. And as I say, a very fresh character, and that's what it's about. You've got to have freshness on all these characters that we're presenting here.
You most certainly do, yes indeed, and of course these are the ones that have been presented, or we're getting the feel here on the internet, that are popular with the people at the moment.
That's right.
Top 10.
I also think WayForward have put forward Shantae as one of their candidates for Super Smash Bros. So there you are, Banjo. And in at number 9 now, we have Quote from Cave Story.
Most certainly, Quote. Now, this little character is the hero of Cave Story, as you said, and uses a wide array of weapons to take down his foes from a distance.
I see. So one of his favourite weapons is actually called the Polar Star, a trusty handgun that he picks up at the start of the game. He could use that in Super Smash Bros. Now, his moveset might be quite similar to Mega Man's.
Well, yes, he could possibly use that, and could perhaps use his booster jetpack to fly around the stage, maybe.
That's a good idea, of course, and I say there, Mr. Sakurai himself did specify that any new character in Super Smash Bros. Has to bring something fresh to the table and something new. So the question with Quote is, would he be too similar to Mega Man?
Well, that's a good question. They don't want to double up. They don't want characters looking the same or feeling the same in gameplay as the others.
Dr. Mario and Mario.
Well, exactly. Well, they've already done it.
I mean, really?
Well, yes, so there we are. But that's number 9, is it not?
That's number 9, of course. Quote there, I think he's quite a good candidate, and I did enjoy playing through Cave Story thoroughly. That was a very fun game. Then, of course, in at number 8, we have Bayonetta, the heroine of the Bayonetta series.
Oh, most certainly is. Now, her long legs are not only for looks, but perhaps you could give her the ability to land powerful kicks at a long range.
I see, of course. She could perhaps kick away at those foes from a long distance using those legs of hers. Now, for distant combat, she could switch over to her trusty pistols and make use of a variety of her flashy tricks from the Bayonetta universe.
Most certainly, rather good idea, and a character that has been mentioned as one people would like to see in the game.
The question is, though, is she just too good looking for Smash?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you've got other characters in there. You've got Zero Suit Samus, for example. I mean, do Nintendo even care about that?
You've got Wario.
Care?
I mean, Wario's fairly good looking. Actually, no, he's not. Wario, I said.
Oh.
Anyway, so Bayonetta Fideos, is she just too good looking? I don't think so. I think she could bring something fresh to the table, certainly. Although, of course, we'd have to be careful that she wasn't doing, too many moves, as it were.
Well, maybe.
We'd have to keep her in check there, I think. But anyway, moving on then, Fideos, we come to number 7. It's Shovel Knight, of course, the shovel-wielding hero of his very own indie game.
Yes, another character that has proved popular. Now, what could he do? Well, maybe the shovel weapon could prove very versatile, not only in digging fighters into the ground, but also in throwing them around.
I see, of course. He could actually launch the fighters with that shovel, and of course he could bounce off of his foes, rather like he does in his game, and even dig through the stage.
Indeed, and perhaps he could throw dirt at his enemies to stun them, and use long-range projectiles from the game to attack at a distance, maybe.
That's a very good idea, and of course Shovel Knight would be an interesting inclusion, because he would be one of the first indie characters in Super Smash Bros. We had the Commander Keen trophy, of course, but Shovel Knight would be a very new and fresh inclusion in the series, and of course, no doubt, he'd prove quite a powerful fighter, I think.
Well, most certainly, yes, and just chipping in there in case Chappets wondered, Nintendo have said that it doesn't have to be a Nintendo character to be in Smash Bros. They will take characters from other games, yes.
I see, so we don't have to have sort of Mario and Luigi.
No.
We can have other fighters too. That's quite interesting.
So let's move on.
Moving on then, Fails. At number 6 we have Knuckles from the Sonic universe.
Well, Knuckles, once considered an enemy in the Sonic series, but now, of course, an ally of Sonic, his abilities they include gliding through the air, striking foes with his powerful fist, perhaps, and clinging to walls.
That's right, of course. Knuckles would be an interesting character. He'd be a bit of a variation of Sonic because he's not quite as fast as Sonic, but he hits a lot harder, making him quite a threat. He could be a fast-paced bruiser, as it were, really laying into his foes and then running away once the damage was done.
Well, he could do, but don't we already have a hard hitter with Little Mac?
Well, we do, of course, and we have Captain Falcon also is quite a fast fighter who has a lot of punch behind him, if you'll pardon the pun, but still I think Knuckles would be an interesting inclusion. He has many fans, I quite like Knuckles, and of course, he'd be quite an interesting and fresh entry in the series.
Well, yes, there we are. Knuckles is another one.
Knuckles from Sonic Tales. Then, moving on to number 5, we have Banjo from Banjo-Kazooie.
Most certainly. Most people will be familiar with that one.
Yes.
Now, Phil Spencer, the Xbox chap, has recommended this one.
I see, has he? So Phil Spencer, of course, the Microsoft fellow, has said, we'd be okay with Banjo and Kazooie going into Smash Bros., which is quite interesting because they, of course, own the rights to that series. Now, what could their attacks be?
Well, their attacks perhaps would be based upon the duo's skills in the Banjo-Kazooie series, obviously.
Yes.
Using both partners in a similar way to the Ice Climbers, although not exactly the same, maybe.
I think so. Of course, you are right there. We did have the Ice Climbers in previous editions of Super Smash Bros., but Banjo and Kazooie aren't really like the Ice Climbers because most of the time Kazooie's in Banjo's backpack.
Well, that's true, yes, indeed. Who knows, but it's certainly one of them that's been put forward by actually one of the large companies.
Yes.
So we'll have to see. But
that's right. And if you've played the Banjo-Kazooie games, you will no doubt have many visions of the kinds of moves they could use in Super Smash Bros. Again, very fresh there, interesting ideas, and certainly I think Banjo deserves a space in Smash Bros. Old chap.
Well, maybe.
Really.
Well, yes, maybe. I mean, would you chaps and chapettes out there like to see him?
I would. I'd like to see him. Yeah. Then, of course, in at number 4, we have a returning fighter from Super Smash Bros. Brawl. You may know his name already. It's Snake.
Well, Snake, yes, indeed. Now, I don't really know why Snake's not in this one.
Why isn't he?
But, obviously there's a great big hole there with his name on the top of it, where he could certainly slot in. Weapons, attacks, fights, well, you take your pick with Snake.
That's right, of course. In Super Smash Bros. Brawl, he had his rocket launcher, his Cypher, his C4, his Nikita missile launcher, and many other tricks from the Metal Gear Solid series. In the new game here, he could, of course, use those same attacks, or he could change his moveset to include such things as, well, gasp, pistols, old chap, who knows?
Well, maybe a bit of CQC.
Yes, indeed. He had his throw actually last time, which did have a bit of CQC, but perhaps he could gain a tranquilizer pistol that could temporarily put the enemies down, a bit like Zero Suit Samus's Paralyzer Blaster.
That's a good point, yes, maybe, but certainly he is one of the characters that has been talked about for this top 10.
I want Snake in Smash. I mean, I really think he deserves a place there. I'd like to see him coming back, old chap.
Well,
so
maybe.
That's Snake, and then for the top 3 here, fellas, we're going to be moving on to some of the characters that have been heavily requested by the fans. That's you out there.
Most certainly, yes, indeed. Now, one of these top 3, number 3, is Goku.
Goku!
Yes,
Oh my word,
indeed.
the hero of the Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball Z over here, series. Now, in that series, he's Earth's greatest defender.
He most certainly is, yes indeed, and his original mission was to destroy Earth, but his memory was changed in an accident, meaning he now fights for good.
I see. Of course, Goku famously possesses incredible strength and superhuman skills, even turning sometimes into Super Saiyan mode, which causes his hair to glow yellow and gives him great powers.
Most certainly. Now, he would be a formidable threat perhaps on the battlefield, and possibly even falls into the category of overpowered, depending, of course, on what they would do to him and allow him to do in the game.
Of course, that's right. It's a bit like having Superman in Super Smash Bros. Because, of course, Goku is near invincible in the Dragon Ball Z series. Certainly against these fighters, he'd be very strong. But the question is, would they bring his power down in line with the other fighters?
Well, most certainly. That's exactly... It all depends what they allowed him to do, you see.
And I mean, really, you have to consider with characters from anime like Goku, do Nintendo have the necessary rights to include him in the game, and would the owners of Goku be okay with that?
Well, yeah, it's a good point, but I think if other characters come in from other games, as we just said there, Microsoft saying, well, yes, why not put one of ours in? I don't think there would be too much resistance from other companies. I mean, it's going to help them sell their own games and sell their characters, I would think.
I think you're right there. Certainly, getting your character in Super Smash Bros. Is a very good thing. I mean, it certainly has helped Shulk out among other characters. It's a good thing waiting for companies to do that. Then at number 2, my goodness me, a strange one here, we have Freddy Fazbear from Five Nights at Freddy's.
Well, of course, you see, now, this has been a very, very popular, people have said, look, we want to see him in. It's been a lot of hype around, oh yes, why can't we have Freddy in, or one of them in the actual Smash Brothers game? Now, who is Freddy? Well, he's an animatronic, as it were, stuffed bear, as you probably already know, and the main enemy of the Five Nights at Freddy's series.
I see. Now, this creepy little bear tries to assault the security guard of the venue at night when he is not keeping a close eye on Freddy through the security cameras. Now, if you ask me, it might be quite tough to make Freddy into a fighter because, of course, in Five Nights at Freddy's, he sneaks around and jump scares the player when he's not looking at him through those security cameras.
Well, he does, yes, indeed. And, of course, his actual, well, if you could call it weapon or move, is to just try to put people in other skins and just shove them in there.
Shove them into an animal suit, that's
exactly,
right.
So, although a lot of people would like to see him there, and they've said, oh yes, I'm voting for Freddy, or one of them, but how could it work? How could it fit into the game? What would his move be?
Well,
because they can see him all the time for a start off.
Exactly, and I mean, we already have Yoshi who puts people inside eggs already, so you have that kind of thing in Smash, but I still think there's a place for Freddy in Smash Bros., a bit like a scary stage boss like Mum from the Gamer stage.
Ah, yes, you could do that, yes, a gamer stage where Mum comes along and just scares the other players and
growls at you,
them, as it were.
Yes.
There's a possibility he could come on as that sort of character, but maybe he could fit in as the main character too, who knows?
You never know. You can, of course, trust Nintendo to come up with some pretty smart ideas sometimes, so they might just come up with something for Freddy too, if he was to be included in the game. And then, arguably, I think one of the names I've seen mentioned the most often as perhaps even the most wanted fighter for Super Smash Bros. Might not be who you're expecting.
Most certainly, in at number 1.
This is ridiculous, Elcha, but I have to say it, it's Shrek! Shrek! Now, who is Shrek, exactly? I mean, who is this green fellow?
Well, exactly. Now, this is strangely, once again, a very, very hotly sort of contested, or one said, yes, we wanted to see him in there now, this Shrek. Now, he's, of course, an ogre who possesses great strength.
Yes, indeed, his strength is far beyond that of an ordinary human. He first appeared in a film in 2001. Now, he lives in the swamp and has a donkey as his friend, along with a lady ogre named Fiona as his love interest.
Yes, indeed. Now, his moves perhaps could involve a combination of speed and power, using his strength to, Shrek his opponents.
He's going to Shrek his opponents, is he?
Well, yes, Shrek them. Yes,
is that to get Shreked, mate?
Well, exactly, maybe.
I think so.
But the thing is, just with power and strength, don't we already have Donkey Kong in there and Bowser?
And Ganondorf? Well, we do certainly have some characters like that, but perhaps Shrek would bring a rather comical spin into Super Smash Bros. Again, I don't know if Nintendo could secure the rights to use such an unusual character in Super Smash Bros., but he's certainly an interesting idea.
A lot of people would like to see him in, and a lot of people have said, yes, we want to see him there, and have voted for him and said, yes, we want to see Shrek. So there we are.
Now, of course, are those people joking? Are they serious? Do you really want to see Shrek in Super Smash Bros.? What do you say, Freddy?
Most certainly. Tell us what you think. This is our top 10 here, based on general consensus of opinion, as it were, across the internet. But tell us what you think. Maybe you think, no, that's no good. I'd like to see this one or this one in. And indeed, just let us know.
That's right, Bells. And here's my honourable mentions. I'd like to see Tharja from Fire Emblem, Princess Daisy, and get ready for this, Katsuragi from Senran Kogora.
Really?
Yes, I'd like to see her, but perhaps she's a bit over the top, I think. But, we can always remake, chap.
Well, we can always do, I suppose. Yes, you never know. You'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see exactly what Nintendo comes up with, but this has indeed been Game Chat and Birdie bringing you our top 10 most wanted fighters in Super Smash Bros. Thank you for joining us, Freddy, and we look forward to seeing you once more on the next exciting outing, my
we
word.
do.
Until then...